This chapter is focused on digital online ordering and its critical importance in these times. Sarah Kabakoff, VP of Solutions for Lunchbox and an industry trailblazer, will share her perspectives on technology, industry trends, and how to have a strong digital presence. Sarah, appreciate your time. Let's get started.
Sure, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. My name is Sarah Kabakoff. I'm the VP of Solutions for Lunchbox. Came from the restaurant business, grew up as a restaurant kid, worked there in the mid-90s. Got into tech about 10 years ago, started my journey with the Aloha product as a reseller. Left the Aloha product after the NCR acquisition, moved to a startup called Zipscene, did some cool stuff with data. Zipscene was acquired by NCR, so I went to Toast, worked as an early employee at Toast, grew the enterprise business at Toast, was one of the original founders of the enterprise team at Toast. And then recently in June of 2020, moved over to Lunchbox to capitalize on the massive opportunity that Lunchbox has in the marketplace today.
That's awesome. Quite an impressive career. You've been around POS for a while and probably seen some good, the bad, the ugly. But I think that's a discussion for another day. And it's interesting because POS continues to evolve and be really that kind of facilitator within the restaurant. So let's talk up. I think it's important to really start talking about omni-channel, right? And I think, in nowadays and kind of coming out of COVID, there's so many different kind of terms running around. And so we'll get into some of those definitions, but maybe if you could just help me define omni-channel for everybody and really what is it and why is it so important?
Sure. So, omni-channel, I define it as a guest experience that lowers the barrier of entry and allows a guest to easily move between web and desktop. It really simplifies the flow of the ordering process or the flow of the guest interaction process and allows them to interact on their terms. So, a good example might be I'm in my office building and I might use a desktop in order to place an order. But on my way home, I want to grab an order and I use my phone. Maybe I start it in the desk, in my desktop, and then I remember on my way out of the building, oh, hey, I remember I wanted to finish ordering my pizza or my chicken or whatever it is that I'm ordering. And that experience should be really seamless. I should be able to pull my phone out of my pocket, have the same account and have that perpetual experience where I can just say, yes, I want to complete my order. It makes it really easy and convenient for the guest. Because I know personally, the way I look at it is I always put myself in the guest shoes. And I always think like, I'm your target consumer. How would I behave in this scenario? And I think we've all had the experience where, it's not so easy to order from a brand after you maybe started in one experience and then you're going to an app and the app experience is subpar compared to the web experience and you just don't have that cohesion. So I end up abandoning what I was doing and going to another brand that has a lower barrier of entry for me to be able to make that convenient order. And I know sometimes it's just laziness, but when I'm on the go and it's time to pick up the kids and I got to get to, from one place to the next, convenience is king in those scenarios, especially when I want to be able to have an easy, seamless interaction. So I think it allows for the guest to have a better interaction, and then it also allows for HQ to have a more consistent understanding of that guest's behavior. Mm-hmm. And nowadays, data is becoming so much more important. And if you don't have data and you're not using a data first approach, then you're going to be left behind. And omnichannel allows you to understand how I behave on on the app versus the web, right? Versus maybe even a catering product. So I think that's really how I define omnichannel.
No, that's awesome. And a lot of things to break down in there. So I'll start with a few. You talked about really having this frictionless guest experience for the consumer, which is critical. And for all the reasons that you mentioned, but that also brings some complexity for the restaurants, right? And so if you look at how omnichannel has come into play, especially now during COVID and coming out of COVID, everybody's operating models have changed. And I think, like omnichannel, probably a buzzword that we continue to hear is the new norm. But how do restaurants prepare for that on the operational front? Because providing that seamless experience is on one side of the picture, flowing that into the restaurant operations tends to be where some of the friction point comes. And so, what advice do you have for restaurateurs to make that a more streamlined process, especially with your experience with restaurants and POS as well?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things you have to consider. There's a technological and there's an operational component to it. In the technological side, you have to think about your menu structure and then what functions are available above store and what functions are available in store, right? Because different technology platforms that you may have in your stack may allow for some things to happen above cloud that can't happen in store. So a good example of that might be loyalty, right?
Mhm.
I may be able to have a loyalty transaction above store, but depending on what my tech stack looks like, whatever I have in store may not support my tech of choice for above store, right? So I have to be really thoughtful when I'm thinking about how do these things interact and what's the guest experience in store and out of store. Because while the out of store experience is becoming so much more prevalent, you still need to be able to have some type of a decent experience in store that translates well. Otherwise, you may only have delivery only orders from this particular guest rather than being able to create a seamless in-store experience as well, where you're going to capture more of their business. An example of this might be, for me, I like to get Jersey Mike subs. It's like my favorite sub shop. I really enjoy going there. And the experience is really great for me both online and in store. I can go in there, I can order my stuff online, I can pick it up right in store. It's a really great experience. Or if I go in store and I don't want to order online and I want to actually go and go into the restaurant, I can scan my app, makes it really easy to interact in store and be able to get my points, or I can punch my phone number in and easily be able to get those points in store as well. And that's going to drive me as my behavior to be able to go and do that. If I have to like pick up a receipt and scan it and remember to do that in order to get my points, I'm a lot less
Understand.
likely to go and show up in store and give you that extra visit. I may still order the sandwich at home, but the bottom line is if I'm using something like DoorDash and DashPass, I'm costing you more money to get that sandwich to me. Even if I'm using your native solution and it's cheaper for you to get the sandwich to me, if the in-store experience isn't great and I go home to order the sandwich rather than grab it on my way out, I'm still costing you more money. So I think those pieces are really important when you think about the in-store experience for the consumer and how your tech actually powers that from the menu level all the way up to the actual interaction. And I think from an operational experience, if we just kind of stick with that Jersey Mike's, I'll give you a story of what happened over the weekend. I was out and we were grabbing a couple things from Lowe's and doing some home improvement projects, and I kept seeing Jersey Mike stores in different areas that we're in, and I'm like, oh, I should just really get a sandwich. Like I keep on seeing them, so I'm just gonna buy a sandwich, right? So I pulled in to another one in a different area where we were shopping at the time, and I ordered on my phone, and I sat out there. I didn't want to go in the store. The store wasn't even relatively busy. I just was done with people at that particular point in time. So I placed the order, and the food was sat right up at the front, and it was clearly defined where the DoorDash, Grubhub, and app orders were. So I was able to see the food being placed, and I was able to understand when I could just walk in and grab my sandwich because there were no other app orders at the time, but there were DoorDash and Grubhub orders. And so the organization of the employee being able to streamline those pickup areas gave me the easy identifier to be able to go in and just grab my sandwich and walk back out, right? So
Yeah.
that was a great interaction. And operationally, those stores do a really good job of separating where the online orders are picked up and where the in-store guests are, so that you don't have confusion in the store for drivers coming in, standing around waiting for food. Everything is clearly marked, everything is clearly displayed, names are clearly written on bags. So if you watch the flow, and the same thing in a Chipotle, right? You watch the flow, because I do that very often. I'll just
Yeah.
sit in a restaurant and just watch the flow of how things go. And brands that are really well organized with here's a clear lane for you to pick up, here's a clear entry and departure for these type of orders versus my in-store customer experience, those operational changes allow for streamlined efficiencies that make me as a consumer want to interact with your brand, because there's no confusion on where do I go, what do I do, especially when consumers are, you have a variation of them. Some of them
Yeah.
don't mind being in store and being next to one another. Some of them don't want to be on top of one another. So I think being really mindful of how the flow of traffic in and out of your restaurant goes, and then how the technology stack interacts from the above store to the in-store level is a great way to think about it.
No, absolutely. And I think, that organization is critical. And I think it's critical not only for the consumers, because confusion tends to bring chaos, but I think it then also helps, both of those help from a staff engagement perspective, right? And so they're under a tremendous amount of pressure already, and you throw confused guests kind of yelling, "Where's my order?" or trying to figure out where to navigate, it just creates more chaos and more stress. And so, yeah, no, definitely agree with that. And so I think the other, part that came out of that, and, I heard it briefly come up, was about, delivery and costing more money, and really, a big push coming to another term to define for people is kind of first party delivery versus third party delivery. And maybe you can just explain a little bit of difference between, the two, and then why the big push to first party delivery to help some of the restaurants out there navigate these.
Sure. So, everybody's been talking about third party. It's such a hot topic, and sometimes I get a little bored with the conversation about what they're charging, because we all know they're taking large commissions. They need to make money too. I've heard brands,
And they're not. And that's, I think one of the problem is they are, and they're not making a lot of money. But anyways, another topic.
So, the third-party delivery programs are certainly, you can balance that. You can charge a little bit more on there. Is it fair to your consumers? Probably not. I personally hate when I go to a third-party marketplace and I pay an extra $4 or $5 for the sandwich, but I understand that I'm paying for that convenience, right? I'm paying for the differences. I think consumers are waking up more and more to like what it costs the restaurant and how they want their restaurants to survive, whether they're a corporate chain of restaurants that has a lot of franchisees that are still SMBs, or whether it's independent restaurants that are, individual, fresh concepts. Consumers are really waking up to understand what the cost of these platforms are to their favorite restaurants. And so they're willing to engage more with the brands, independently. And I think they also get a better experience with the brands independently, because you're not distracted by all the other things, and you get the rewards from the brands specifically. So I think there's certainly advantages to the third-party marketplaces, especially if you're going cloud kitchen, right, where maybe no one's heard of your brand, because they certainly enable smaller restaurants to expand through great companies like Reef and Kitchen United and Cloud Kitchens that enable smaller businesses to grow faster and become more virtual. And there's certainly a great place for customers to be able to gain recognition in those third-party marketplaces, and they definitely have their own customer base. So you can certainly use those and leverage those to create a lot of awareness about your product and your food, especially in new regions where they may not know you, or you may not have a physical footprint for people to see as they're driving by. But if you're able to capture those customers and then redirect that business to your first party delivery, you can see a significant cost savings. So whether or not you're employing your own drivers, or even maybe utilizing something like a DoorDash Drive service where they're not taking a commission, it's a flat fee and it's based on volume. Both of those have cost savings associated with them. I like to look at, when I'm looking at pricing for a customer, I like to understand, what's their order volume, what's their check average, and what's the capture rate between first party and third party for their digital ordering space. And then I like to do an analysis all the way down to the credit card processing and the marketing dollars spent of what does each individual order cost you? And then how do you think about that in a percentage wise? So your native solution with your own delivery, or even using something like a DoorDash Drive type service, or a Relay or a Waiter, or one of these types of services that provide this last mile delivery, it can be significantly less when you start to do the analysis of what does this actually cost me to get the food to the customer at the end of the day. Then you have to weigh all those costs. So you have to say, okay, with my first party drivers, I might have insurance that I have to pay extra, what does that cost me a month? And then looking at my order volume and looking at the percentage that I'm paying versus the percentage of what my driver's insurance costs me. If I have to pay them additional fees for their car, wear and tear on their car, or whatever type of certain,
Yeah.
additional benefits I'm adding for them, or if I have to use any additional softwares to help me dispatch and track those drivers. What do all those things cost? And how do I do a true analysis of the percentage of cost for each individual order? And then you also have to weigh in the benefit of owning your customers' data, right?
And that,
That's such a huge part of it that you can't really put a measurable dollar on that until you start owning the customer data and start understanding how to get them to re-engage. And a lot of brands, especially some of the more regional, smaller brands, don't have the resources like the larger brands do to do these deep analysis and have these data warehouses. So you've got the rise of a lot of different companies that are coming out here and working to help brands do this and help brands with that marketing, and then they can really start to see the return on that. So not only are you cost savings 5, 10, sometimes 20% versus the third party marketplaces, but you're also expanding the number of best guests that you have and driving back more repeat visits, because DoorDash certainly isn't going to, unless you pay them, they're certainly not going to send a push notification,
yeah.
hey, come eat at Kelly's Barbecue today or order from Kelly's Barbecue today. But if I've engaged Kelly's Barbecue, you can certainly define my behavior and know that I eat barbecue on Tuesdays when it rains, and I likely have rain in the forecast this Tuesday. So I should probably send you an email on Tuesday morning that says, hey, come get your barbecue today. Your order's waiting. Click here and have it ready at 6 o'clock. That's a compelling message. If I'm at my office, I'm at the desk, even if I'm just sitting here in my home, and I'm like, hey, yeah, that's a great idea. And I click that and set that order. That's encouraging me to have that extra visit that you're not going to capture on the third party. And you would never know that I was eating barbecue on Tuesdays when it rains because you don't own me as a customer. The marketplace owns me as a customer.
And I think owning the customer, and I think it brings into some of the, the next kind of discussion topics is about creating that one-to-one dialogue or that one-to-one conversation, continued conversation with each individual customer, right? And so you've seen with the power of the data that we're collecting on consumers, going for kind of broad strokes email or campaigns to, I want to have a conversation with Sarah. I want to know everything about Sarah, and then intersect, understanding her behaviors like you talked about, and sending the right message at the right time. So Sarah feels special and has that kind of one-to-one relationship. And so, how do you then take, once you get this data from first party delivery, and we're seeing the big shift, then, if you're, a small, mid-sized, restaurant company, how do you then activate on that, right? What are some of the best strategies from an engagement perspective? And, without overwhelming somebody, or, you just don't want to continue to blast so people get tired of you and unsubscribe or, opt out of messages. How do you craft that best strategy from that standpoint?
Yeah, it's multi-layered. It's difficult and it's easy.
No secret sauce. Some secret sauce.
There is certainly when you're evaluating platforms and you're looking at platforms, look for that marketing component that uses the data already encompassed in the platform, right? And that's so important because especially if you don't have a data warehouse, you don't have a data lake, you don't understand how to associate the values, you don't have a data scientist on your team, which most of the smaller regional brands don't. How are the solutions that you're either deploying today or looking at, how are they answering those questions? How are you able, ask them, say, hey, if there's someone who orders from me every single Tuesday and they don't order on a Tuesday, what happens? Does your platform react, or do I have to go in and search for that? Because if I have to go in and search for that, that's an extra step that I may not get to because I'm busy, especially when you're wearing many hats and you're growing a brand and you don't have as many defined swim lanes. Sometimes that stuff falls through the cracks. But if you have your platform and the platform deploys these tools, and you can say, hey, I want to build a segment of guests that order once a week, and then once they fall out of this segment, I need to capture these people based on them not engaging me during this week. Oh, and by the way, here's the creative that I need to engage them with, or the offer, or whatever your engagement model is that you want to bring those people back. And you have that automated, so it's just a drip campaign that's always there and always ready to go. you're going to continue to nudge that person to interact with your brand again, and then you may not lose that person. Whereas, we're creatures of habit. So if I order once a week from a brand and then I don't order from that brand for a couple of weeks, I might fall out of the habit of ordering from that brand every week, and I might go to buy monthly instead of weekly.
Mhm.
But I can tell you, I respond to messages well. Once again, I like to put myself in that consumer's foot and a consumer's shoes, and understand how I react to those brand messages. So there's a great little sub place here in Cincinnati where I live called Penn Station, and I like Penn Station a lot.
So clearly you like subs. So
I do like subs.
So we've now put that in Sarah's profile. She likes subs.
So these are hot subs. The cold
Yep.
subs, hot subs, I think are, I order them from very different places, but I'm definitely a sandwich fan for sure. But this particular brand, they send me great email marketing, because I have the app, which I don't have a lot of apps on my phone. So the real estate that is on my phone are definitely brands that I engage with. And so, they'll send me great messaging that encourages me to understand, like what their sub of the month or their deal of the month might be, because they know historically I've ordered those things before. So if I order a cheesesteak and the cheesesteak is the sub of the month, they send me that marketing and they push me on that marketing, and I usually go in and buy a sub, right? Even if it's, hey, get a free soda with your sub purchase. Well, sure, I'll go in. I don't even drink soda, but because I'm getting something for free, I'm going to go in and be like, oh yeah, cool. I'll get, a Dr. Pepper or whatever, right? And enjoy myself a soda with my drink. So I think they do a really good job of being able to nudge me and recognizing through push notifications and through emails when I'm not in my normal buying habits.
Yeah.
And if you don't have things like that set up, you're not going to recapture those additional visits, right? The people are going to trail off, and then they may go from being a best customer to a one step down in the guest bucket. And then vice versa also, when you have people who could be your next best guest, right, by understanding the data and being able to push those people forward with the right messaging, you can take someone who may have been a trier and then understand through previous history based on what this guest looks like, right, that we can push them along in the funnel by sending them specific messaging that we've seen be successful in the past, right? So you can also start to look at, operational data too, and say, okay, when, a customer buys, the steak sandwich, for example, they advance further in my funnel than when they first buy a ham sandwich. So if I'm reaching out to new lookalike customers, and I'm exporting segments from my, online ordering provider, my digital engagement provider, I'm exporting a segment of guests, and I'm going to social media and I'm building lookalike audiences. I can then say, I know this segment of guests all started with a steak sandwich, or whatever these 3 sandwiches might be, that are driving this experience forward. I can export that and then use that data to target my next best guest to push that in, to push those people further down the funnel.
No, and it's all great. And so, what about the audience out there that's saying, I run restaurants, right? Like I only caught half of the segments and I only got half of like everything that she just said. How do I get around it? And so, knowing that there's platforms like Lunchbox out there that can help kind of navigate, people through this experience. So it becomes a little bit more automatic in those, delivering some of those campaigns and kind of setting up some of those target audiences. And so maybe you can explain how the technology can then ease some of, not having to have, restaurant operators be kind of full-time social media or full-time marketers as well. Because like you said, everybody wears a lot of hats, and not everybody's fortunate enough or big enough to have, sophisticated marketing departments.
Yeah, so that's a great question, because I think, and I'll go into some Lunchbox specifics. I definitely don't want to make this a pitch about Lunchbox.
Yeah.
I'll tell you some of the reasons I joined Lunchbox and why I think there's some differentiators there is because we're using data and being a data first company and measuring what's happening with your data and understanding how our customers' performance is. So one of the things that we do weekly is we have a deck that goes out to leadership that says, of our customers, and we take a look at their websites and we do an analysis, because we don't own the website, we own the ordering site, right? Moving forward from the ordering site. But we're going to take it a step further. We're going to look at your website. We're going to say, is the ordering button placed where we know through hours of, careful analysis makes the most sense for guests to see it and interact with it? Does the UX of your website encourage your guests to order? So we help monitor that with our clients as they onboard, and then as we learn more, we continually reiterate with them. We also look at guest behavior through the 26 data points that we measure on all guest behavior. I won't give you all of them, but we measure 26 unique data points, and we're growing those as we as we grow as a company. We're growing those data points as well, and adding in more third-party data points to be able to understand more about the consumer. But we track these behavioral data points, and then our team dedicates time to work with the brands and say, hey, these are some of the behaviors and some of the campaigns that we've seen be really successful in the past. Here's kind of the white label or the white papers on them to explain why we found them successful. Here's how we think we can help you in this particular scenario. We think you should set this and see what it does. And then we help you report on that, right? So we want to make sure that we're looking at how your marketing's done, how your outreach is done, where your drip campaigns are set, and then we monitor your weekly sales on the platform as well. So included in that weekly report that goes out to leadership every week is our brand's sales on the platform, so that we understand if the brands are up or down. And if they're down, we need to take a look right away. If they're stagnant, we need to take a look right away. It's a red flag to us that says, hey, is there something going on here? Do we need to reach out? Do we need to help? One of the things that we did during the pandemic is we actually put $10,000 of ad buy for one of our brands to help them maintain themselves, right? To help them maintain. And we actually went out and said, hey, let's experiment with this. Let's put our money forward. Let's see if we can make you more successful on social based on the historical things that we have learned throughout this process. And we're going to be releasing some papers on it soon, but we were able to 10x that investment. And now we're running another campaign test with another client of ours in New York, and just trying to reconfirm our results and just really make sure we understand, cross our T's, dot our I's, make sure we understand where the success is. And then we want to roll out an ad buying service for our customers, just as included in the platform. Now, obviously, we're not going to always pay for the ads, right?
Yeah.
We would just be losing money.
Yep.
But we want to be able to say, hey, here's the things we see perform really well. We think you should run this account, and here's we think you should run this ad, and here's the return we think you'll get on it. And then we ultimately, what we're working towards is putting it in a dashboard where you can log into the Lunchbox dashboard as a franchisee or as corporate, right? And then you have tiles that say, hey, we think you should run this ad, and here's the return we think you'll get on it. Click to run. We run it, and then we measure that in real time to show the dollars that are coming back to you. So taking the guesswork out of that, enabling those drip campaigns that are recognized based on behavior, so that you're capturing people when they fall out of specific funnels, understanding when people buy certain items that drive funnel messaging, that we capitalize on that and send the right message to drive that person to the next step in their funnel. So, getting to doing the digital ordering just brings us to the table, right? But what differentiates us is that focus on helping brands market, helping understand the behavior of the customer. And then for the larger brands that already have these capabilities, we export those segments, we enrich that data, and we push that information out to them so that they can take that information and then be empowered to use it themselves to drive their own marketing through their current existing relationships.
So it's more, I mean, and I think that the key to that is it's more than just a technology platform. It's also the expertise, and it's also an extension of, again, whether you're big or small, that marketing arm to kind of help navigate through this process. And then as we're trying to, create this frictionless experience for guests, it's also frictionless experience for operators in this kind of vertical of marketing, right? Because like you said, they have so much to do. Running a restaurant, is probably one of the hardest jobs in the world, right? And I say it in every conversation that I'm having. How you start your day and how you end your day are always completely different, because you're wearing so many different hats throughout the day. And so how we, as from a technology perspective, can make those experiences better and more frictionless and have kind of that seamless flow across kind of all the functions of the restaurant, super critical. Earlier, you talked about, I think another kind of hot trend, hot topic right now is ghost kitchens, right? Why do you think they're starting to kind of emerge, and why you see even some of the big brands kind of jumping into this so quickly?
Yeah, I mean, the barrier to entry is low with a ghost kitchen, right? And traditionally, restaurant companies have to have a real estate portfolio too, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you have 1,000 locations, there's 1,000 physical buildings that you have to either rent or buy, right? And then you have to upkeep those buildings. It's a whole division of people that have to be created, employed, and you have to have the expertise in order to even get to start to deploy those things. Not to mention understanding the right areas to choose, the right demographics. It's a huge barrier to entry for a lot of restaurateurs, where today with the rise of the ghost kitchens, you have companies that are doing that for you. All you have to do is be within the right delivery range, right? You have to make sure you focus on the quality of your food, you focus on the things that you're good at, and you let these other companies take care of the things that they're good at. So it gives the average restaurateur who has great food and a real attention to detail, it gives them the ability to expand rapidly and with a low barrier to entry. And these larger groups that already have this real estate footprint, why wouldn't they just open up more brands? They don't have to have more physical spaces. The ingredients are already there, right? If I'm serving chicken wings and I want to open a chicken wing concept, I'm just sourcing more chicken wings. So now I already have the buying power with the food distributors. I have the workforce and the people trained in the kitchen to fry the wings and sauce the wings already. All I'm doing is flying it under a different banner. So it gives you a really easy way to expand the market that you may be, interested in, or you may be able to penetrate. So Chili's is a great example, right? With their wings concept. Like, I may not want Mexican today or Tex-Mex. I may want wings. And Chili's may not capture that business for me without the wings concept, right? And the overhead isn't any different, whether they're just buying more food, which is once again a plus for them because they have the buying power of all those physical locations. So I think you really see that the larger brands capitalizing on the ability, because everyone eats, right? And buying food is very, very prevalent. I prefer to buy my food than make it myself, right?
Me too.
Especially when it's just me or I'm cooking for two. Like, it's just easier to order something to the door. I'm working late, and that just makes a lot of sense. So I really think that you're going to start seeing more of these cloud kitchen brands from the larger brands, and also maintaining these smaller brands that are going to be growing and give them a faster route to nationalization than they would have had previously by having to have a massive footprint of real estate and actual physical presences.
No, and I think it's a great way for, new and established brands to test a new market without, like you said, the capital infrastructure of trying to find the right site. You can fail forward on menu items. You can do a lot of testing of customer preferences in a marketplace a lot quicker than you could when you're dealing with kind of a brick and mortar. So definitely believe, you're going to see a more and more kind of penetration of ghost kitchens, right? As we kind of emerge out of COVID. One of the things that I haven't written down, and looking over, and I think, in some of the notes and as we were going back and forth, something you said to me that was really striking, and would love kind of to end on this is, you stated great food is a benchmark, not a differentiator, right? Don't miss your opportunity to take control of your guest engagement. And I thought it was a really powerful statement, and would love for you just to kind of expand on that before we kind of close out today, because I think it's true.
Yeah. So, lots of restaurants have great food, right? And what is it that makes it great, right? It tastes great. Is it heat? Is it hot when it shows up? Like, what's the factor of great food? And I don't think today every restaurant has good food, basically, right? Every restaurant has some type of item that's good. Most restaurants are doing, the sustainably sourced things. They're really trying to move forward with, the high quality ingredients. So just because you have great food doesn't make your restaurant or your experience better than your competitor next door, because your competitor next door is likely going to farmers markets, sourcing sustainable food, and doing the same things that you're doing. And what makes your sandwich better than their sandwich, right? At the end of the day, they're both a sandwich. They both feed me. As long as I enjoy both of them, I may not choose one or the other because the food is better quality, right? Because I think everyone has that benchmark of good quality food. Now, I say everyone as a blanket statement,
Yeah.
right? But in general, the restaurateurs don't get into it to serve terrible food, right? They're in it to serve good food that they believe in. And so that becomes a benchmark. Like, you have to have great food in order to get your consumers to engage with your brand and eat your food. But just because you get there doesn't mean that you're going to capture the behavior, and capture the guests. You have to have a great interaction. You have to make it easy for me to engage with you. You have to make it easy for me to talk to you. You have to make it easy for me to correct any misses that you might have, or things that I might want to be able to modify about my food, right? If I want to be able to change and remove sauce from something, I can't tell you how many times I've gone to a digital experience and I can't remove a sauce from an item, and there's no area for me to put notes, or when I try and put notes, there's some type of tech area or some type of tech error, so I abandon the cart. And your food is good. I enjoy your food. It's fantastic. But my child is very picky about the sauce that comes on this and only wants to eat lettuce and meat on their taco. I can't remove the sauce. And so rather than deal with that, even though I love your food, I love your competitor's food equally, or maybe even a little less. I might even like it a little less, but I can remove sauce. I can get the engagement that I want from this brand. They're sending me the right cues. So guess what? Yeah, I love your sandwich, but I'm going to go over here because I can get it the way that I want it. And you both have great food, even if the brand that maybe I want to order from that has a subpar digital experience might be just a notch above you in food. That's not going to stop me from going to your competitor, because it's about me and the selfishness of my interaction. And I think that's, people, we live in an on-demand society, right? Amazon gave us 2-day delivery. Instacart gives us 2-hour delivery. DoorDash gives us 40-minute delivery, right? We're getting, the time to eat and the time to satisfaction is smaller and smaller and smaller. And so the easier and more convenient you make it for me to interact with you and get it the way that I want it, when I want it, on my terms, I'm more than likely to interact with you on those premises more than I am on your food being better than the competitors, because you probably both have decent food.
Well said. So as we're going through this, and you brought up a lot of amazing things and capabilities today, how can people get in touch with Lunchbox? What's the best way to engage?
You can certainly go directly to lunchbox.io. You can check out all of our amazing content that's there. You can certainly reach out to sales@lunchbox.io and ask any questions or ask for a demo of our product. You can feel free to reach out to any one of our customers. You can go to the iOS store. You can look up Lunchbox Technologies as a provider and reach out to any of our customers. Talk to them. I always tell everyone I talk to that wants a reference, ask any customer. We pride ourselves on customer service. Can you win them all? No, but we know we can win them all, right? But even the ones that we skin our knee on, we work to make it right. And I think that's what sets us apart as a true partner. So certainly lunchbox.io, sales@lunchbox.io. Reach out, let's talk, let's engage. We can even talk about things like data. We don't necessarily have to talk about moving to the platform. Let's have a conversation about what marketing looks like, and maybe just things to think about as you're starting to architect a change in your digital software.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And Sarah, really appreciate your time today. For all those out there that make sandwiches, I'm sure Sarah would love a good sandwich. So appreciate your time and look forward to catching up soon.
Thanks for having me.